Welcome, welcome. How's everybody? I have a friend here in the studio today. I think her name is Yvonne, but I'm not really sure about that.
That's Trumpkin.
No, not this morning.
No,
we don't do politics in here. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was not politics. That was just
really.
That's just a costume.
Well, anyway, just absolutely adorable. For those of you who don't happen to be the biggest, the biggest fans of high school football, period. If you're a fan of high school football, period, obviously you're going to be watching this program and listening to the program on Friday night that Lance does. But this was thanks to Peaches and a real collaboration with you and your attic and your mama. And
we had a good
goodness
time.
Gracious, that really is a fun one.
It's the stuff that you have to
I'm going to make
together.
these blink. They'll blink here in a moment. So we
cobble it together.
We're just putting together a little bit of spirit in the world because we understand that we are, in fact, at SuperTalk.tv, the Garden Mama Show, and everything else that we do around here. So we'd like to bring in a little visual fun once in a while. And plus, it's the week of Halloween. Come on now. We're not going to bring in, Michael Keaton, but we like to have a little fun here and there.
And as I told our listeners last night, those costumes are available. At Willie Roy's Custom Costume Emporium up there off 751.
I'm telling you,
that's
that's his pseudonym. That's your business. I know that.
Side gig.
You've taken up costume rental.
There was a great place in Oxford that had like everything, and people. I guess it flourished, because you have such a group of people that are doing the dress ups for sorority,
any number of things, absolutely.
And then the two high schools right there. So it was just this absolute coolest place.
Sure.
You could just go in there and get lost for a little while, going, that's next Halloween, I'll do that. But we rented some stuff from there before, and it was really fun. I mean, just one of those unique times. And Oxford, it really embraces the Halloween world.
As you might imagine, my son is a proud graduate not only of Pomona College, but also of Murrah High School here in the Jackson Public School System and the APAC program there. I'm getting really tired of all of the memes about the sadness of formerly gifted students and all this kind of stuff. He doesn't costume for a living, but he has taken all of his APAC theater training directly to the streets of New Orleans. And I'm telling you, he looks pretty good in a platinum wig, as it turns out, for Halloween this year.
I wish I would have had a platinum wig for my Bill Clinton last night. I just didn't have one.
Got your voice going. Yeah, you would definitely need those curls to make that one, to sell that one. Too much. I don't go as a character. I'm enough of one myself, but I do like occasional, extra necklaces, extra things to go along. I thought today, since it is in fact our semi-celebration of the All Saints' Eve, that I would bring you a quote from my favorite horror author, Stephen King. Books and movies are like apples and oranges, he tells us. They're both fruit, but taste completely different. I think this is somebody who, like other folks you've heard speak, maybe John Grisham and people like that, have signed away the rights to their first movie, and after that regained control of all the rest of them, or retained, I should say, control. That's a very true statement, though. They're very, very different. There are always conversations about, did you see that in your head or did you see it in a movie? And in fact, sometimes it's better when you just see it inside your own mind. This morning, there are going to be both a few Halloween-y things as well as some really cool plants that I think you need to take a look at from my garden. And whatever you're kind enough to send in to us this morning on the text line, we will get those up there. I'm looking at fall color. No. I've not been to Vermont. This is not a sudden, leap into red leaves and whatnot, although there are some. But what I'm looking at are the changes in my garden that have made it very, very colorful this particular time of year. Probably yours too. I've got to tell you that if I ever was tempted to, and I would not do this, you better not either, to remove something from someone else's lawn, it would be the barking skeleton dogs. I think that was just so much fun. I can't imagine what it must be to live next door to that if you're not into it. But
there's some great creativity to the Halloween stuff.
Really fun stuff. Man. Really fun stuff. So, what's going on in your garden? Tell me a little bit about this, that, and the other thing. Love to hear from you
That squash
today.
plant has come back around.
You're kidding.
No, it had a beautiful yellow flower on it. I'm not sure it'll have a squash on it,
but it's pretty.
Thing's resilient.
I love that.
Eaten it 3 times.
That's funny. I love that. My goodness. I don't know about kangaroos at this hour of the morning. Thank you very much. But the beautiful pumpkin that graces the table here today, I will tell you, I was part of the didn't actually get it here. I just said you should call Peaches, and he did. And now we've got pictures of Peaches' crazy, amazing Halloween display. So if you've got a crazy, amazing Halloween display, by all means, send it to us. We'd love to get it up on supertalk.tv.
You can count on him to have one, I can assure you.
Oh, yeah. And we all have in central Mississippi, and I know they've already bloomed. My friends in Picayune have already told me, for example, the Clara Curtises are just full tilt. And even without a whole lot of rain, mine are blooming and look just beautiful. So do Mark's. They're lovely. Really fun stuff. It is. There's a lot going on in the garden, even though it doesn't necessarily seem like it, because it's the turning point. It's the change. And it has been really dry. Most of central Mississippi, and I think another good portion of the area around us, is in a burn ban right now, which kind of makes it tough for Halloween bonfires, but just got to cut that out this year. Don't do that. Do something else. Do something else. Fun stuff going on here on the computer. That's great. I wanted to let you know that today is that classic, Make a Difference Day is what it's called. And I know that it means that you should be thinking of something that will change something if you take part in it, if you work in it. And I've always felt like this was a great day to decide what I was going to make some donations for at the end of the year. And these don't have to be big donations. Organizations, nonprofits, things that you support can certainly take $1,000 from you, but they'd be happy with $15 if that's what you got, because trust me, they're looking for money at the end of the year. It's a fundraising time. It's also a time when they're looking at budgets for the next year. So if you have a particular operation, for example, you might have a shelter for pets that you really do support, that you love. You may have an educational program that you're just absolutely devoted to. You may have a church mission that you're crazy about. Make your decisions now. You're going to make a difference when you make that donation. So make those plans today, and then go out and do something nice for the neighbors. You know, you can make a difference in both the short term and the long term, and I think both are very important. I do think that we make up a lot of stuff, but Make a Difference Day is not anything made up at all. We've always, if you grew up like I did, and a lot of you did, you knew that there was always somebody that you needed to worry about. It might be a cause, it might be a person, it might be, some overarching metaphysical issue, or it might be the people down the street that have a broken fence. You know what I mean? There's a world of things that you can make a difference about, and you should. So I hope that you will. Now, I'll tell you what I'm not going to make a difference in, and that is the world status pumpkin contests. Good grief, y'all. I held on to this for a couple of weeks because I kept thinking, well, there'll be another one. There'll be something else. There'll be something else. But they still did not beat, in any of the pumpkin contests this year, the 2023 record. This pumpkin is the size of an adult walrus. If you have ever seen an adult walrus, you can imagine that it takes a large trailer to get this pumpkin to the contest to be weighed. In fact, 2,749 pounds. I'd have called it 750. But that brings us to Worldwide Howl at the Moon Night. And that, of course, is tonight for all of those things. We're celebrating Pumpkin Day in here today. We're celebrating Howl at the Moon tonight. Should I say this? I didn't wear purple and gold today. It's a pretty good year for me to be doing that, so I probably will eventually. My biggest note, though, and I'm sorry to say this, football fans, I'm going to be watching the World Series after last night. Good grief. That never happened before, did it, Lance?
I don't know. I mean, it was wild. We were doing the show.
A walk-off home run.
Freddie Freeman walks it off.
I mean,
extras. So
just incredible. Bases loaded. It's the end of the day. What's going to happen now? First pitch. Ooh, I would hate to have to be that pitcher and go home. But on the other hand, that's how baseball works. You win some, you lose some.
You do, and one pitch out of 150
Exactly.
can be the difference in the game. It's why it's such a great sport. It can be a little boring to watch, but then
it's not.
Then it all of a sudden explodes.
Now that we have 15 camera angles, it's really not boring.
Well, it's not. If you like it's like golf has gotten much easier to watch.
Exactly.
But
There's
baseball,
more to see.
There's that one thing that happens, and as a player in it, you sense when that's coming. You know that something big's about to happen.
I know that the Yankee fans are just ready for tonight. They want to get over this one, for the one from last night, and get on to game 2. That's why it's not a one-game series. But I got to say, that was impressive. And, of course, Freddie Freeman, I have to support that. We alliterates have to stick together, the people with 2 initials that are the same. We have to kind of appreciate one another. Well, I won't he's the only one that would be interested in this, but I can tell you that my complete historic baseball team starts with Bob Boone, okay, and then goes forward with all alliterative baseball players.
I love that.
I did it years ago.
The literary element to your DNA.
You just
can't escape it.
Can't get away from it. There's no doubt about that. I'll tell you something else we can't get away from, and that is the fact that everybody is trying to figure out when it's going to rain.
Yeah, now, there's small percentages. But,
it's nitty-bitty. We're not in the drought from last fall, okay? We are not in that circumstance. But I don't see anything in my – I'm certainly not a meteorologist, but I listen to them and I read other stuff. It looks to me like, unless you happen to be standing in the right place and get rained on for a moment.
Yeah, like the sprinkler hits you.
Exactly. It's not going to be much.
I'll do the weather today and dig around, and all I saw as of Friday was small percentages of potential. Maybe some clouds, but nothing that
beautiful this morning, by the way. Clouds were gorgeous.
The weather's been amazing. It's just, as you said, very, very dry.
Yes, very dry. And that, of course, tells us that it's been warm also, and we are looking towards a warmer season if all the predictions come true. So I say, why not? If things dried up, if you started some lettuce, if you started some, if you have some things that you planted didn't do so well because it got hot and it got dry, start again. Let's go again. Why not?
I've been watering dirt, so it's there's hope.
Well,
you show up and you go, hey, let's water the dirt a few times today, and
maybe it'll make me happy. Maybe I'll feel better.
Little engine that could, little engine that could. Just keep trying.
Well, you've seen my place. Most of the plants that have any tropical nature are already inside, and I can't walk through 2 of the rooms. But the dilemma now is, for those of you who don't happen to know, my personal life is kind of an open book these days, but I will be away for a bit. My daughter's getting married, and one thing and another. Ken Hackman will be in, not next Saturday, but the following Saturday. And I'm excited to tell you about that because it also means that I have to be ready in case it gets cold up here before I come back. So I've planted the pansies. They've dried up. I've planted them again.
What colors did you roll with?
Well, purple and gold. I can't help that. That's a tradition with me. The sorbets are looking good though, and they too are purple and gold because they're those little bitty viola flowers, little tiny Johnny jump up flowers. They're even smaller. But I like those colors, and there are a bunch of them that I like a lot that I just don't ever get around to planting because I don't plant that many pansies. But my goodness, the garden centers are beautiful with them right now. Everything is looking great. Let's see. I don't know how late you can plant wheat. Usually we plant winter wheat by now, but we plant wheat again in the early spring. So I don't know how late. I'll see if I can get somebody to tell us. Bubba in Starkville wants to know, can y'all fill us in? Who grows wheat? I suddenly have a whole bunch of people asking me about growing hops. And hops are just a beautiful vine. I don't care if you never get a hop off of it. And it smells good, too. The foliage is a delightful, real crisp smell. So we can talk about hops and we can talk about wheat. So if you got something you want to offer the folks that are growing those things, please let me know. I'd love to pass on some advice. That's fun. I have to write down hops and wheat or I won't remember it later.
Millet, I know, not that it's the same thing, but it would be still growing pretty well in the cooler weather. It's just if you put it in a soft spot where the rain's, get it, then you may have it.
Millet has
It's great with a little bit of water, but once it gets a lot of water, it's done.
And I can imagine that some
growing.
people have planted wheat and everything else this fall, and it's just been so dry that things have not.
Yeah, I wish I'd have
gone along like we
last year. I
wanted.
planted my millet a little late, but then the rain came, and I did it right because of the weather. Actually, it was stimulative for it. If I'd have done it early, it would have been. I don't think it would have done much. But
no, because of the drought.
Then the rain came, and then it got over my growth and kind of drowned it out.
And it really is always a balance between how much moisture is available and how cold the temperatures are. So somewhere in there is a growing zone. Looks pretty good for this year. I'm going to be putting in another round of radishes and that sort of stuff, just because. You like radishes?
Yeah, I like them shaved.
Ah.
Or either real thinly sliced.
Yeah.
Absolutely love them.
Yeah, I like pickled everything.
Oh,
so.
pickled. You can just put them in there. And,
exactly.
I don't care if they're sliced or not.
And by the way, y'all, you don't have to make your own pickling. You can use the pickle juice out of the pickles you like. It's okay.
You can get the
put
hot
in a little
stuff.
extra vinegar, put in a little hot sauce, and off you go.
I've actually, people have used the Mount Olive hot pickle juice. To put
well,
the
Mount Olive does have a monopoly on this market.
Pretty much around here, that's what you got.
I believe you are correct. My goodness. I know that there's one thing. Somebody sent me a note this week, and I thought it was so interesting, wanting to know about why his carrots had great big tops and at the same time not hardly anything underground, even though he's watering real well, real consistently. I think that's a fertilizer issue.
That's another. I'll eat it right out of the ground as a carrot.
Well, but it needs to be, longer than an inch.
I'll eat that
happy.
too. Yeah,
particularly when you have a foot of greens. His picture, the greens were a foot off the ground, and that's really too high. So that's too. That tells you it's too much nitrogen.
Okay.
We need to put more in for the phosphorus and potassium world to get our growth underground.
Total sense.
But I'm going to plant carrots again too. So who knows?
If you're getting the too high growth on carrots, then you've got too much nitrogen. You want to kind of swap
just
it around.
like in the summertime, if your tomatoes have leaves and no fruit, that's what it is. Well, we got to get out of here, folks. I have to dance now, so we'll be right back. I tend not to say things that are too desperately serious here, but I'm going to give you my one that I do. I have always been a little disconcerted by creatures that stare at me, and then I'm supposed to eat them. But I had, ever since the time at an aquarium that, I can't tell you how much I love aquariums, but anyway, when the octopus literally crawled along the window in front of me, looking at me the whole time and went the entire length of the glass, and then when I turned and went the other way, came back with me, I realized that probably wasn't going to be something I was going to be too happy to cook.
That, and it may be looking at you saying, that looks delicious.
Because I was thinking, because I have a feeling that's how, I need the octopus to feel that way about me.
Yeah. So, exactly. It's looking at you like, man, that looks delicious.
Exactly. And I don't need that. But it really was the eye contact that did it for me.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it did it for him.
Yeah, don't eat me. I won't eat you if you don't eat me.
Exactly. Let's come to a stance here. But they are so beautiful. And then, looking at I can't imagine spending most of my career on the bottom of an ocean with octopi, octopuses, whatever they are. But when you see the video of that, it really makes me happy that I live in a time that has such video so that I can actually see them, honest to goodness, change color and become a rock in their environment, disappear from view. There's so many things about that I'm really glad Ringo decided to celebrate it, simply because it gives me the opportunity to say, wow. What amazing creatures. What amazing
Well, and we
creatures.
had a great conversation about the conspiracy theory. We're talking about the Beatles. The
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah, just so y'all know, we do talk about things other than gardening.
We talk about conspiracy theories.
In the garden, I had to ask her, and she's a big Beatles fan, though, so I had to get the honest opinion on if there's a stand-in for Paul, and there has been. We can't share that kind of conversation with you, the results of it, but just
you'll have to talk to me when you see me.
But no, the garden was amazing. It was such a beautiful day. I love sitting in your garden. It's so great. There's always something new, and it inspires me. I mean, it really does.
It's a plant collection. And
it's not just that. You always move
because there's
stuff
always
around
something. There's something changing.
Always moving things and all that good old stuff, and there'll be a new plant. We got somebody here saying, can you talk about the mystery of acorns, specifically the white and red oak, please? You hear so many different things about them.
What do you hear?
Yeah. What's the word on the street?
I need to hear more. I have red oaks on my property, and I can tell you that
They're majestic.
They are magnificent, and at the same time, the worst thing about them is that they lose leaves consistently through the year, so the acorns are falling on you too. They don't all drop at once, and they are literally a mess to try to keep up with. And don't walk barefoot in my backyard at that time of year. You'll be sorry. You roll right over them. It's a mess. But I don't know. So tell me, Bubba, give me some insight, and I'll be happy to start. Speaking of that, Bubba, I have it on good authority, but I can't cite who it is, so it's probably AI. I don't know. Anyway, I knew that we needed to get the wheat planted before frost, okay? But it turns out that we may have, it may be another thing where I'm saying, maybe we can get some carrots in the ground, maybe we can get a few other things planted because of this weather. If you've got a couple of weeks before you think it's going to be frosty in Starkville, which I would think is probably a couple of weeks at least, yes, plant wheat. And there are folks that are going to be planting because they planted before and it didn't come up because of the drought, or it came up and then fell over. So anyway, something to think about. Mike is in with some. We're going to start calling him Morning Glory Mike, because they're just so gorgeous, and some really hilarious. I don't know whose skeleton this is. It's obviously a plastic skeleton. But who decided to do that? I'm pretty sure it used to be really hard to find plastic skeletons, and now they're like everywhere. And I'm tickled by it, but I don't know whose decision that was. It's pretty funny. There's some wonderful stuff, though. There's Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. That's interesting. Beautiful. I love the blue one especially today. That dark blue has just gotten gorgeous.
Isn't it? It's like you could make some ink out of that.
I'm serious. It's just beautiful. And I have to say, your little cherub along with the skeleton, it looks like she's going to have a good Halloween.
Yeah.
So that's fun. You got a whole truck to put candy in. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love that? The lavender's pretty. The blue is gorgeous. Thank you very, very much, Mike. Always love seeing that. There you go. Picking some tomatoes. I love it. That's really sweet. And there are some, yes. Those of you who are picking them, bring them to me. That's all I'm going to say.
Never too late for a tomato sandwich.
Never too late. Or too early.
No, I mean, yeah.
For that matter. I did find some cherry tomatoes in the store that were really delicious, but they're yellow. And they're light yellow, so they're not, they don't taste like tomatoes that you might, they're very low acid. And they were absolutely delicious, but they just they're different. It's like eating some other thing. So that was kind of fun. I want to talk today about the garden concept that we keep working on for pollinator gardens. I have been doing a bit of work. It's kind of garden dreaming for me because I do have a plant collection that includes many of the plants that I want to support pollinators, but not all. There are some that I would still like to accumulate, and I probably will. But it's all about building that pollinator habitat and also, frankly, making it look nice so that friends can come over and take a look and say, oh, that looks really neat. Look what you did today. And I think that is one of the things that we need to talk about here. The site issues for a pollinator garden are pretty simple. You need soil that drains and you need sunlight. It would be particularly helpful if you also have access to water because there will be times when you're going to need to do that. I would say this is also a project that needs to be near you. It is exercise, but it's exercise that you have to do consistently, especially when getting something like some of these plants started. But the other piece of it is, of course, that you can focus this pollinator garden right outside your window, or you can focus it down a path where it becomes a view that emerges from some other space, or it could actually be an opportunity to do something entirely different that will lead to other people coming and being interested. For example, I'm working with some friends now to put a pollinator garden in a public place. And when we work on that, the issue is always who's going to take care of it, how's it going to look at this time of the year. And what I have done is to put down in my own list what the plants I have in my garden that will support this kind of 4-season, low, medium, and high height, different pollinator appeals, that is to say different flower shapes, and also, frankly, how many of these can you actually get hold of? So I've been working on this particular group of things, but I wanted you all to know about it because I'm calling it the Sustainable Integrative Pollination Garden, the SIP Garden. Does that sound familiar? Of course it does, because Mississippi's known as the SIP everywhere. But this was what I was calling it before I realized the acronym. So there's the English major again. Anyway, we want to encourage bees, both native and European. We want to encourage butterflies, moths, flies, wasps, beetles, hummingbirds, bats, lizards, frogs, and oh, those beautiful salamanders. My goodness, there's been some gorgeous ones this year. Squirrels, possums, whoever's going to come through there needs to feel like it's a safe place to get some water, to get some food, to rest, maybe even to propagate, to reproduce and make more of themselves, because that's how the pollinator community works. If you're not providing all the elements, they can be there for a moment, but they won't be with you all the time. 4 seasons and 4 heights, I literally mean this: ground level, knee high, waist deep, and also taller than that, because you have pollinators that will approach at each of those heights. And also, some things seed and some things don't, so you need to know where those are so that the mammals that need to pick it up and get it into their fur can get that particular one moved into the next environment, because that's where we're working on. I want to be able to do this in every neighborhood. I want to be able to do it everywhere that anybody lives. And so as a result, we can all feel like we're doing a sustainable pollinator garden that's going to benefit and, frankly, give us the opportunity to view the world through that prism of plants, We talk about how the world looks differently when you put your touch on it, and that is one of the things that I'm very devoted to, is the idea that we're going to make it our own. We're going to welcome the pollinators, we're going to have a good time in the garden, and at the same time, it's going to be very personal. So everybody's garden is individualized and gives you the pleasure that you need to have to be doing it all this time. Talk a lot about that today. Right now, let's get into Robert in Ripley. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. I have a quick question. I just made a raised bed. It's a 16-inch high, and the top layer is 3-year-old goat and sheep manure. And I planted turnips in it, and I planted them in rows because of the environment, put it in the beds. And I planted them about 9 inches apart. And I kind of wish I had pushed that a little farther, but I didn't know how far you can push the density thing, and what the reasons are for that.
How big a space are we talking about?
We're just talking about it's 3 feet by 5.
Okay,
this one is
okay. Turnips and most of the greens, but particularly turnips, because we want them to be able to make a root as well as the top, do need to be seeded and then thinned. So you've already done the thinning part before you planted. I presume you planted 4 or 5 seeds in each spot and then moved along and planted 4 or 5 more.
Yeah, and they're up about an inch or so, and I need to come back and thin them at this point.
You will. And here's what I've done before in a small space like that turned out to be very productive. You may look at other opportunities. People will give you ideas, and they will tell you to seed that whole bed and then thin as you go. That's sometimes a lot of trouble. You may not get out there that day, and the next thing you know, they're crowding each other and leaning over and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think it's better to start out a little bit farther apart, and then you're going to thin, so you're going to get some nice big turnips. But you can also come back with a little bit of seed in between those, maybe in another week. Let the turnips themselves get settled, get thinned, and get ready to get growing. And then you just come back in, and if you want some extra greens, you'll have extra greens in between. I've done that, and it made the small space almost doubly productive.
You were talking about radishes and carrots. Can I? These are. Keep in mind, these are 9 inches apart. The rows are. Can I come back in and put radishes and carrots in between those rows?
I would put radishes. I would put radishes because they're only 30 days, and they're not as deep, so they won't compete with the turnips for the nutrients that are in the soil as much. The radishes will be in and out by Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
What's your favorite radish?
I'm so boring. I like Scarlet Globe, and I really like Icicle because I like spicy taste. That white one is one of my favorites. Yeah. But I really like
mine too.
I like the French breakfast radish is really good. If you get me going, I'll get all the way up to daikon and the ones that I like to pickle. But for fresh eating, I really like the little red globes, usually called sparkler or red babies and that kind of stuff. I just think those are delicious. I can eat them by the handful.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the info.
Have a great day. Let me know how that. Send us a picture in a couple of weeks. Let me know how that's going. I saw a picture of a friend of mine's turnip patch. He said he had planted them too many and too close together. I thought to myself, I'm glad I don't have to thin those, but it's going to be some beautiful greens because it was pretty thick. There's always that balance between what we need to plant and how many of them. And then we're always afraid they're not going to come up. So if 2 will do, we plant 10, in that same little spot. Sometimes that's a good idea because we do have seeds that fail to come up or things get washed away or the birds come along and eat half of them. But at the same time, we really do have to be aware that each plant that we want to mature needs a certain amount of space around it. Turnips, 9 inches is a lot, but he's got space in between to plant. So if I was doing turnips and I had a row of them already thickly seeded, I would certainly thin them out to where they were at least 6 inches apart, just because that makes such a much better turnip green head as well as the space underneath. I love that. We talk about things that we grow oftentimes that we wish somebody else would grow for us. And I've been kind of that way about kohlrabi. I've grown it before, but what do I eat, 4 or 5 of them, so a year? But there's always folks growing them. And if you haven't tried things like kohlrabi, try them. You may decide they're your best favorite thing you're going to end up growing forever. I don't know. But I know if you don't try, you won't find out. We got a lot to do today. Thanks for being with me here on the Garden Mama Show. This is Super Talk, and we'll be right back. You got to love a bass player. Y'all are so funny.
Bill Lesh passed away.
Yes, he did.
And one reason I wanted to play that today
yes,
in homage to the man with the greatest bass lines in the world.
Ever.
Yeah.
None better.
He was the oldest of the group, too.
Yes, he was. If you're a kid and you want a career in music,
be a bass player.
Consider bass. And get all of his stuff, because he literally could make the song or he could back up and take it. It was just he was astounding, and he taught a lot of people just by his very being. So
I can't remember if he wrote Pride of Cucamonga or not. But
I don't know.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I'd read yesterday, and I love that song.
Yes,
but yeah, he's so great. I didn't mean to derail a gardening conversation, but with a little Grateful Dead that was being played, and Phil Lesh.
The Jerry Garcia band. For those of you who don't know, they all did other things at different other times. Everybody in most big bands like that have other things that they do. And, Phil Lesh was the oldest of the bunch. So for those of us who are old and still rocking, we look up to that. We're very happy about that. I think that's great. One of the things that has always... I'm sorry. I shouldn't look at the screen sometimes when I'm trying to be serious. Okay. So Ron in Ocean Springs and I are having a discussion about the fact that I did not get a T-shirt to him from the event for the Bottle Tree Garden Tour from our great remote at Fondren Yard. And I intended to, but everything went so quickly and all the shirts were gone. Bang, gone the first day. So he's now trying to crack me up. He's succeeding. Essential oils. I'll just leave that for y'all.
I loved it.
It's not motor oil, but there is a jar of this at my grandmother's house.
There was a pan full of it. I mean, like a saucepan. My mama always
like
had
so many things.
Just covered.
We were all taught that you probably shouldn't keep the bacon grease in an open can at your house. I mean, on the stove at your house. If you're going to keep it, you should put it in the refrigerator, yada, yada, yada. You probably shouldn't. Anyway, everybody's opinion. And as soon as that all gets out into the larger culture, of course, it's like everything else. You shouldn't grow your own tomatoes. Anybody tells you that, what are you going to do? You're going to grow your own tomatoes, because it's too hard or it's too this or it's... And bacon grease is the same way. People that cook with bacon grease, cook with bacon grease. Other people cook with other greases and other fats and other things like that. But what they're working on is something specific, and this is an absolutely lovely jar of essential oil bacon grease from Ron.
It's still warm, too, you can tell.
You can tell that it is. Rhett says that he has started playing bass by accident 30 years ago. Bands always need a bass player. You have made my point.
Exactly. I know several in
I
Oxford
married
that would
one.
make-
I know
make
about
a good
these
living
things.
playing bass.
That's right. I know about these things. Anyway, there's an awful lot of good music, and there's always somebody to appreciate. So I like that. I think that's wonderful. Really cool turnip patch from long-time listener. I love people that identify like that. That makes me tickled. 900 acres. It'll be 1,500 acres of turnips as soon as it rains. And it's a video. It's really cool. I'm so glad to see that. Thank you for sending that this morning. Paula from Dentville, rather, is making breakfast and driving me crazy with it this morning. That's wonderful. And I just got to tell you, this is a beautiful, beautiful day. If you're celebrating Halloween, if you eschew that and don't do it at all, that's okay too. But I got to tell you that as a horticulturist, Halloween is a huge thing, and not as much as it once was, but we grew chrysanthemums that were intended to be sold and taken to cemeteries on All Saints' Day. It was traditional, still is in some places. And so as a result, we started in July growing the chrysanthemums that would be perfect for that particular event. Well, it also turns out that at that same time in the year, this is going to sound crazy to some of y'all, but college guys, I'll put it that way, used to give college gals corsages for things like football games. And they were made of chrysanthemums most of the time because guess what? That was the flower that we could get in that time.
It's durable, too, isn't it?
It's a long-lasting cut flower, very long-lasting. And, of course, if it's in a container and all that stuff, it's another way to take it home and have some more.
That's how I learned is from watching Escape from Alcatraz with Clint
there you
Eastwood,
have
because the warden at the end has the chrysanthemum, and he gets mad and he tries to crush it, and it doesn't do anything. It's like one of those little spongy things that comes back. Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not that indestructible. It is a little artistic license, but they're a very durable flower, and they are one of the things that when you see them a week later, they don't look that different than they looked the week before when they were cut. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Is there a reason? I was always curious about the chrysanthemum, and it seems to be kind of a special class of flower in that it does have more of longevity to it, where so many others just kind of just wilt quickly for you.
It does. It has a green stem, but it's a very sturdy green stem. When you cut it across, it's woody on the inside, and it has therefore the ability to take up preservatives and hold those flowers for a long time.
When you
but
always
they do
say
even
woody
if they're
stem,
not,
that's key. Like if you're looking at a gardenia, even though it has these robust flowers that last a long time, they're extremely aromatic, and so you attribute some of that to having that more.
Yep. Absolutely, because that stem holds more water in and of itself. And what we're doing when we cut flowers is we're trying to make sure they hold enough water to hold their flower up, and some are easier to do with that than others.
We could only teach a zinnia to have a woody stem.
We can't get them to be, but we can grow them low nitrogen, which is what we're doing right now. In fact, growing them low nitrogen so that they have a bit thicker stem. They'll be shorter, but that's okay. But they'll have a little bit thicker stem, and they will condition a little bit more easily. Things like celosia and amaranth and all those things that we grow here as cut flowers are also very green, but they do condition well, and so we appreciate that. So we're always looking for.
Thank you. You answered several questions for me there.
Let's see. Can pink lemonade blueberry bushes be grown in Zone 8B? I don't see why not, Kathy. I've only seen one picture. I've not grown them, but as long as they don't say that you can't grow them in Zone 8, your soil should be perfect. And they are a really pretty blueberry. I've seen the fruit. Really nice. Interesting, though, huh? That's neat. There's some things that I am doing. There's some things I want to do, perhaps would be a better way to put this. I want you to know about the whole issue of what fall color is built from in our part of the world. And I want to open your eyes a little bit, maybe your thoughts a little bit more, to why we like these silly pink chrysanthemums so much in the autumn, why we are so fond of the fact that Chinese pistache is a great street tree and also has beautiful color in it. Just turns orangey red. It's just lovely. But there are a lot of other things that we might want to look at in your garden and in mine, and perhaps even add to next year. So in the coming hour, I want to talk a little bit about the SIP garden. I've got some ideas for you about what plants constitute that SIP garden so that we can talk about them together and maybe collect some of them. And I also want to talk about that color issue with you. So if you've got a suggestion for a plant that's really beautiful in color right now at your place, send it to me. I'd like to see the photo of it. And also, of course, we always want to hear from you. You can give me a call. You can send a text on the text line. And you can also dance on out with us here, because I'm going to take my blinking lights and go around the corner. We'll be right back. Thank you, David. Appreciate always having that wonderful voice here. As you can see, Yvonne has taken on some jewelry. We're celebrating a little bit this morning.
We need to get our guy for this time of year to go to the yard you don't have to mow.
That's right. Yeah. Here she is. Anyway, welcome into the Garden Mama Show. We're having a great day around here in that we are both celebrating Halloween and also looking at, frankly, the pollinator gardens that we're creating. We're looking at the fall color that we've got going on. Andrea and Madison has just sent in beautiful pictures. She's got so much pink going on, you just about almost need your sunglasses. That's gorgeous.
So we had started a debate this week. What do you think? More Dracula movies or more Frankenstein movies?
May I just say that there can be good things on both ends of that equation.
That's Pumpkinstein right there.
Well, there can be fun on both ends of that. I have to tell you that what I'm really tired of is the increasing escalation in the attempts to outdo one another in zombie costumery. The shambling, the shuffling, the skin peeling, all of those things. Come on, y'all. Let's get back to Dracula and Frankenstein. Either one of those is going to beat the zombies to me. I'm sorry. I know that's a terrible thing to say. Shouldn't put down the zombies. They have feelings too, I'm sure.
I think so, yeah.
I think they do.
They get hungry, apparently.
I was going to say, apparently they feel hunger because they want to eat me. I'm not really sure about all that. But, anyway, that's a whole zombie thing. But if I have to, I'm never going to get past The Count on Sesame Street, and I'm never going to get past the original Herr Frankenstein, the original played by, I'm sorry, I can't think of the actor's name, Peter, but anyway, it's in Gene Wilder's Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
to me,
Peter O'Toole.
Thank you.
Yeah, isn't that him? No, Boyle.
Boyle, there you go.
Peter Boyle.
Boyle.
He's hilarious.
Great portrayal. I mean, if you do that act, you have to do him. Yeah. It's just too much fun. So who's winning on y'all's poll? Who's Oh,
well, it was just kind of an open-ended one because it's hard to confirm that. It's just so many. It was Mary Shelley's birthday the other day.
That's right.
And there's like 900 and something films that have been made. And I mean, you're talking about worldwide, I'm sure.
Sure.
America is not the only country out there, so I don't know how many have been made worldwide, but I think the estimate was in the 900s on just Frankenstein films.
People like to be frightened in cinema. It's a wonderful place to feel all those feels and not have them be in your real life. And so that's why we leap into these things.
Yeah, the girl that works at she's from Cambodia, but she works at the place I like to get breakfast, and her and her husband own it, and she loves scary movies. I mean, like, what you been up to? Oh, scary movies. Mm-hmm. I'm like, of course. Mm-hmm. And then I watched a Laotian scary movie. I guess you can.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so she can understand them all.
You don't even need subtitles.
I have no idea what those would be like. I'm like,
they're all kind of the same, actually. I bet. Don't go in that room, and then they go in that room.
Right. I'm wondering if the budget, though, because here a lot of them, they seem to can really pull off a scary movie for low cost, and that was one of the art forms.
Everyone wants to participate.
Yeah. I'm just curious if like the Southeast Asian ones are like the big budget films that that's their thing. Because
I'm not thinking that there's Bollywood horror, but maybe I may be limiting myself. I may have to search around.
Maybe they haven't gotten to that genre yet.
Have to search around a little bit. I am a Bollywood fan, can't dance, but anyway, this is a good one. Kathy has got an absolutely lovely African blue basil. We were talking about that before, and she has indeed gotten it identified in firm, because I said probably, but I can't really see the picture well enough to tell you. But it's a beautiful one, always full of honey and bumblebees, and by all means, of course, we should all be glad to get some of that. That's wonderful. Same the pink lemonade blueberry bushes. Why not? I mean, come on. I wouldn't try those because they are a different kind than we grow more easily in the southern part of the Southeast. They are one of the more hardy, one of the high bush type, one of the more hardy blueberries. But that's why not? Give it a try. Give it a try. Yes, if you will kindly, Lance. We're getting the texts about football, and we would like people to understand where the stream is. Mm-hmm. If you'd be so kind.
Not sure about that anymore. No, actually, it's very straightforward.
If you're not sure, I'm really in trouble.
It's like two sides. It's like a scissor here. You got the web browser, which is supertalk.fm. Mm-hmm. You can go there and just go to Garden Mama and hit pop right there, and you'll be right back in. Or you can do it on the app as well, and it's the same basic thing. You just find Garden Mama under shows, and it'll take you right to it. So it should be good there.
I really appreciated the hard work that you did to provide me with a clip from the show, which we are orchestrating a little bit of, but you're grabbing parts of the program so that I can put them into the newsletter and make sure that I'm promoting the program as I should be doing. Good feedback. Apparently more people like my voice than I knew.
Yeah, I thought it looked great. It was a great clip. You're good at it, too. You make it easy, so it's not really that much. It's just really slicing up the show and finding the good stuff in there that you like and that we agree is the way to go.
What he's trying to say is he'd like me to have whole thoughts.
I love it. You got about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. That's
all we can do.
Seeking platform right there.
Well, speaking of 2 minutes and 20 seconds, I probably have more than that because I want to get into. I love this idea of putting the African blue basil into the pollinator garden. Love the idea of African blue basil anyway, but it certainly is a perfect pollinator plant. I really thank Kathy for that offer and for putting that out there for us because it is beautiful. I have a couple of categories. The perennial category that plant is in includes for me the fern leaf yarrow, the little white one that is really everywhere. It's one of those plants that is so easy to get your hands on once you realize that you like it. Because most of the yarrows that you see in the garden centers are not the old-timey fern leaf yarrow, and they may or may not be perennial depending on where you live. So it's been fun for me to have the opportunity to really look at the whole business, to look at, quite frankly, how this is all going to work together. One of the things that I really want folks to understand about growing a pollinator garden is the necessity to have something in bloom all the time. This does not mean that you have to be a full-time gardener or hire one. It does mean that you may just want to back off a little bit in the control of some of the plants that you have come to understand as weeds, but are not actually weeds in that they will be growing where you want them to. My best example, of course, is lyre-leaf sage and the little wild violets. I want things that are in bloom very, very early in the spring, even in the late winter when that violet starts up. And because of that, I'm trying to make sure that they all get concentrated into a place. So when I first began this project, I dug up all the lyre-leaf sage as they came up in the springtime with that beautiful tall spike of blue flowers and put them all in one bed. So that is no longer, people say that, oh, that's a weed, it grows everywhere. No, it doesn't. It grows a lot of places, and it will grow in your lawn if it gets in there, but you can move it to another space and it becomes a desirable plant. So that's one of the ones that I have done that with. I also want you to understand that there is a real big importance to the plants that we ordinarily will put out weed killers, quote unquote, on, like henbit. Henbit is the plant that comes up with little rounded leaves, and it has pink flowers on it, or sometimes they're kind of purple. And it's maybe early March, late February when that begins blooming. People tend to think they have to go spray it and get it out of their lawn. It's actually going to die back down. So again, unless your lawn is covered, or unless, one of your flower beds has been taken over by one of these what are called less desirable plants, leave some of it, because that's going to give your pollinators a place to land and a way to find you and a way to get the nutrient that they need to get that nectar even at the times of the year when you're not thinking about it. The bees are around. The wasps are around. We've always got pollinators floating around in the environment here in the Deep South, and I want you to encourage them as much as you possibly can. I really like reseeding plants, too. It's an important thing to talk about, the simplest of it. And in my favorite is actually Ratibida. Ratibida is Mexican hat, and it is a plant that looks kind of, I don't know, sort of wild. The leaves are sort of cosmos. They're deeply cut, and so as a result, it's a really fine textured plant. It makes a statement, but it is a very fine textured plant. And then the flowers appear, which are cones of dark Mexican hats. They're beautiful cones with petals, and they're adorable. This is related in many to many other plants, but the Ratibidas that we usually think about are probably the ones that look more like Rudbeckias, but they are very, very tough. And in this particular case, the Ratibida that I like, the Mexican hat, is pretty drought tolerant. It doesn't croak. It'll stop blooming for a while, but as soon as there's a little bit of rain, it will start again. And of course, it makes tons of seeds. So it has reseeded everywhere in my garden, kind of like chives does. You have to decide if you like it, and if you keep it, then you've got a patch of it. But if you don't like it, you probably need to pull it up as soon as you see it arrive, because it is going to, in fact, sprout and grow. And in the case of the Mexican hats, put on one of my very, very favorite flowers, and a pollinator that goes on all the way through the season. It bloomed in April. It's bloomed all summer, and it's still blooming now. Now, the flowers are getting a little smaller because there's been a drought, and even that plant needs some water, which I haven't given it. And as a result, the flowers are a little smaller, but they're still there. And I have already harvested plenty of seed this year, so it's one of those plants that will go on. Reseeders are sometimes considered to be pesky plants, but I believe in my world, the chickweed and the wild aster, the henbit, and even the white clover, as well as the Ratibida, are my very favorites because they are there every year. They take care of themselves, they reseed, and the pollinators just love them. Absolutely just love them. This is really fun. Corinne's talking about decomposted oak leaves are too acidic for use as mulch. She says she has been using composted oak leaves in her perennial flower bed and under her fig tree for years. Is this bad? Your opinion, please. I've had this argument with professionals, and here's the deal. Too much of anything is not great. If you are using 4 inches of oak leaves to mulch your beds, you are putting in by the time you dig them all in, at once, you are in fact adding to a very acid source. So unless you're trying to produce an environment to grow camellias, azaleas, hollies, blueberries, gardenias, you may not want to do that because it will change the pH of the soil. On the other hand, if you have very, very sandy soil, which has always got a pH that's not ideal for those plants, the oak leaf mulch is going to help. But I kind of agree with Corinne. I've used my oak leaves, but I do compost them well, and I do add a few other things to them. But I have not had any problem growing anything at my place using a mulch made out of oak leaves, and even using a soil amendment made out of composted oak leaves. If you're in an area where the soil is old like ours is, it's going to be a little bit on the acid side in terms of its chemical reaction. That's not a bad thing. But there are some things, rosemary, asparagus, there are a number of plants that we would really have much closer to neutral. Frankly, even apples would rather be closer to neutral. So you wouldn't want to use them at a great depth there, but I still don't have any problem using them as one of the soil amendments when they've been composted. I like oak leaves. Good thing since they're all over my property, better. But I have not seen the issues. I've seen those things be described to me, and the remedy that I have seen for them is that if you have a pile of oak leaves that is bigger than 6 feet by 6 feet by 6 feet, you should lime it before you use it. I don't have any problem with that. That's okay. Okay, I don't think it's going to change it a great deal in terms of the pH, but I do think that it will be a way of keeping it more moderated. If you think about it, it's sort of the same as wood ash in the reverse. Wood ash is going to take away the acidity. So if you want to use it, you can use it on things like lawns and flower beds that are not acid-loving plants. But if you're growing the acid lovers, you don't want to do that so much. Okay? You know what else I found out this week? I have a neighbor who is collecting flower heads to spray paint for decorating. So one of the plants that I have been tickled to feature in my garden this year, the limelight hydrangea, really didn't do much this fall except turn brown. It didn't. The conditions were dry and hot, and they've turned into nice brown puffballs, but they didn't go through a pretty coloration that I usually like to see. So I'm going to cut those all off. They will become part of a spray painted project. I don't know what color yet. I'm going to hear about all that later. But if you have that kind of quality plant, cannas, hydrangeas, there are a lot of things that have dried seed pods or dried flowers on them right now that are just lovely. You can cut them off the plant, dry them a little bit longer, or if it looks like it's going to rain, certainly cut them so they can continue to dry. And that gives you something to play with. I've always enjoyed hydrangea topiary made in a flower pot. There's not really growing, it's just the art of it. And there's so many things like that we can use our own native plants in our decorations for the holiday season that give them a little bit more sense of place and, frankly, reduce your costs because you're getting them out of your yard. You're already growing the plants. Or, in the case of my neighbor, getting them from the neighbors. Not a problem at all. I'm so happy that there are some pictures coming into you that are from my garden. I have one sasanqua blooming. I have the Chinese pistache is up there. I hope you will appreciate that for the fall color. I love sasanquas, though, because they bring us the whites and the pinks for the most part, a little bit of red, but they bring us flowers as well as that deep green foliage. There's so many places that you have to really search to find an evergreen in the fall, and we don't have to do that. We're very fortunate. We've got big, bold sasanquas that are doing a beautiful, beautiful job. The office view in my room, you'll see in the front room of my house where my office is, you'll see Paula's peace lily. You'll see Gary the philodendron. You will also see a rescued Dracaena cane that has a big top on it that's probably too heavy. I need to air layer that plant. And the staghorn fern that I've still got trying to figure out what to do with. It is growing almost into a ball now. It needs to have a little bit more needs a little more attention than I'm ready to give it. It's a big project to take apart a staghorn fern. I'm not ready to do that yet. Oh, my goodness. So much going on, so much to do. Your phone calls, your texts. This is the Garden Mama Show. All right, now. You know who that is, huh? That's that amazing a cappella group, Rockapella. And no, they don't do that every year. That was a long time ago. They were just children when they recorded that. So much fun. All dressed up in the video and just crazy.
Yeah.
It's all about New York, because it's on the heels of all of those other things. Anyway, fun stuff to celebrate. Those of you who don't, I'm okay with that too. Lance said, so did the trick-or-treaters come to your house? I said, no, they don't. My street is too big and too dark. There's too much traffic. We don't encourage that. We encourage in the neighborhood right beside us. So we go over there, make sure the kids get lots of candy. You can do any of these things. I like trunk or treat myself. I think that's brilliant. Open your trunks, fill up the parking lot, bring the kids, have a parade. That's fun. That's just for those of us who really like making costumes and the children who have to wear them. Some people do.
That always just reminds me of the Christmas Story and the pink bunny onesie that Ralphie has to wear.
Yeah.
The homemade costume. Some people are great.
I'm good, but I'm not that great. I found out yesterday that someone that I know's son has now reached the point where there's a partial costume is okay. He's going as Bugs Bunny from Space Jam, but without the ears. He has the jersey, the gloves, the whole, excuse me, he'll present the perfect image, but it won't be. He won't be a cartoon of himself. And I think that's important for 10, 11, 12-year-olds. After that, if you're in a costume at an older age and you're going trick-or-treating, you better have like 5 or 6 of your younger brothers and sisters with you because you're too old. I'm sorry. That's so mean of me. That's why you're supposed to have bigger parties. Anyway, Kevin in Pontotoc has sent a beautiful video of the native sunflowers in bloom. I don't know if y'all have seen the helianthus that's out there right now, and the rudbeckias. I can't get close enough to the leaves on that one to tell you specifically, but both of them have been doing a beautiful job. I wrote up the trace last week, and it was just everywhere. So pretty. And it's a plant that I really like, but a plant that I have to say is a bully. There are a lot of plants that do beautifully at the edge of things. But if you bring them in and put them into really good garden soil, as I once made the mistake of doing with a native sunflower, you end up with a plant that is about 12 feet tall and eats everything else in the general area because it spreads so fast. And that's really not, that's really not a big problem if you're at the edge of, for example, Kevin's field. They're just beautiful, just gorgeous. Let me see, what else have we got? Yep, we got tiny pumpkins. We got, my goodness, such a really, really good time of year. I kind of like stalks of sugar cane and all of those things in the decorations. So whichever direction you're going.
The cinnamon broom's my favorite.
That's fun. That's a beautiful plant that we create into that broom. Because it is called broom, that's the name of the plant, but it does make a beautiful show.
It smells so good.
Yeah, it does.
I love it when you get to a door and it's hanging on it, and you're like, yes, this is going to be a great visit.
Vetiver's the same way. I don't know if y'all have run into that, but that's another thing that they would put the vetiver into fans, because when you fanned yourself, it would smell like vetiver. And so it's that same similar kind of woodsy, oaky.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Same thing as the brooms. They have that delightful, it's an outdoorsy scent, but it doesn't smell like anything else. It just has a very clean scent, like you know that you've been somewhere else. And that's kind of fun.
It's like when I go to Cavender's over there, that leather and western place. It's like I need to go on a date after I go in there. Smell amazing.
I was going to say, she might be impressed.
There's a smell of leather and awesomeness.
Some people,
man, this guy's got it going on.
He must be all right. I mean, he's doing fine here. I don't know. But for those of you who didn't happen to eat already, we're getting pictures of food and things this morning that are just driving me crazy. It is National Chicken Fried Steak Day. Okay,
what?
now, yes, it is. It is.
Probably my second favorite way to eat a steak outside of a steak is to fry a steak.
There's nothing wrong with chicken fried almost anything. But the question remains, what cut? In other words, I grew up with people that made chicken fried steak, but they made it with the thing that ran through the tenderizer at the butcher shop.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea what cut of meat it was.
Yeah, they take the shoe leather
steak,
and
but it could have been anything. I have no idea.
Well, we have one of those at deer camp, and they work great.
Yeah, they tenderize everything.
Man. I mean, especially you take like deer back strap and stuff like that, and turn it into the same kind of setup where you can get that pressed, shred to it, and it is much softer. And you get more surface tension, you get a lot more heat on that, and it's just delicious.
You watch somebody else do that, and you think, well, why didn't I know to do that? Well, that's because you didn't know to do that. It's okay to steal good ideas, just like in the garden. You can steal good ideas for how to cook stuff too. It's perfectly all right.
Yeah, that's what cooking's all about.
Yeah, it is.
Borrowing from someone else that's figured it out.
A friend of mine who is, she would not be embarrassed for me to say that she's a foodie. She is. She lives on the West Coast, and she was telling me that she's been in the place that she lives for so long that most of the restaurants are now people who have come to the town and started restaurants because they think there's a food scene. So there's not really a whole lot of local cooking. You have to kind of go out of town to go find that. So I think we celebrate both ends of that here. You can get elevated Southern cuisine, but you can also still go, frankly, and get my very favorite thing. If I could only eat one thing, it would be the potato logs at the gas station. I'm sorry. Those are great. I can go down the road with those for a long way.
Potato log with a ketchup packet?
Come on.
It's one packet per potato log. That's the allocation.
That's a little too much. But okay, for you, I understand for you. You'd have to mix mustard in it to make it okay for me.
Oh, so you like mustard on your potato log, too?
I like mustard in my ketchup.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You mix it together.
Yeah.
My dad he's real big on the butter and the grape jelly mix.
A lot of people do that
up.
Yeah. That's very true. My grandmother would put butter in fig preserves, and then you could just feel your arteries smack
Yeah,
shut.
definitely. You got to lay down after that. You don't want to go like to the workout or go on a jog.
No.
Probably let it
Do
settle
all that
first. Yeah.
Do all that first. Absolutely.
My cousins, after we would always eat at my grandparents and my mama, they would always cook a spread.
Yeah.
All the good greens and butter beans and black-eyed peas and corn, everything grown in the garden. And, we would always just be so awesomely impressed with the fried chicken and all the desserts. And my cousins, they're 11 years older than me. And they were a little older. I was 15, 14, 16 range. They're in their mid-20s, and they'd fill up, buddy, let me tell you what. And, all right, time to go take a nap. I'm like, take a nap? I'm ready to go play and do stuff. They're like, no. You're not old enough to understand this yet. You wait till you get in your 20s. Yeah, you're going to figure it out. Yeah, so.
Well, I have been to many an event, and I believe that I started understanding that I probably didn't want to host everything that my grandmother hosted, because after the dinner, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, they all worked hard, but the men were watching TV or falling asleep on the couch while the women were trying to clean up and make sure that everybody got a plate to take home with them. So we kind of had all of that going on all the time.
I mean, honestly, and I hate to say this because it probably makes me sound a little old or something, but to me, this time of year, there's nothing like the good nap that you're sitting there eating and you wake up 20 minutes later with the plate in your lap still. And the drink is still in your hand, and you're like, oh, my, thank God I didn't drop this. What happened here? And everybody's dozing off for about 10 minutes, And nobody says anything. It's not, just let him sleep. It's that time of year. Bless his little heart, You do that in the summer, they're like, oh, man, what's wrong with this guy? He's lazy. Get up. Holiday season, though. That's different.
It's different. Yeah. It is different. You're absolutely right.
Is there a favorite dish you have that comes out of the ground? I'm not talking, anything organic. What is it during this season?
This time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, people are probably not.
Not potato log.
People are probably not going to agree with this particular one, but I'm a person who really loves Brussels sprouts and broccoli and that whole family of plants. Mm-hmm. And they don't taste the same at other times of the year. I don't care where they're grown. I don't care where they come from. But when they're grown locally where you are and they're available in the fall, that's some of the best eating. Mm-hmm. But if I could only have one, it would probably be fresh sweet peas. And that's a little harder to grow at this time of year, but people do grow them in the fall, and it's an astounding sweetness.
It seems like I always get my allotment of beautiful yellow whole kernel corn this time of year. Cooked in the saucepan with butter and fat back and all the good stuff. But
that's because all of the women sliced the corn off and put it in the freezer so it could turn into cream corn in the fall.
Oh, and then I love the next step, which is the cream corn.
Exactly.
Oh, man, are you kidding me?
Goes down the road to those things.
Oh, we got Paula says, Brussels sprouts wrapped in bacon. She's on one this morning, folks.
She's got it, y'all.
The breakfast, the breakfast
food.
Buffet I saw, fried egg in there. Come on, man.
It's
I
just
love
perfect.
It. Yeah,
and
just
there's room at the table.
Yeah.
Come on.
You got any more eggs? I'm a 6-egg guy. Come on.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I need to hook you up then. There's a local egg producer that delivers.
Oh, right. Will they cook them for you, too?
No, you'll have to do that yourself.
I love frying an egg.
You'll have to do that yourself.
I can handle that. I can get about 6 fried pretty quick.
Well, if you can fry 6 eggs, you can probably be on cooking competitions because people really take that seriously.
You got to remember,
they'll add the egg to the top of anything.
Oh yeah,
ramen.
I love the French sandwiches, the monsieur and the Monseigneur and all those with the egg thrown on top. You're like,
and then it's running down your arm is the problem. I mean, I have on a dress.
They use that thick bread though. That's the difference there. Here we use like bunny bread most of the time, and that does not absorb the yellow from the egg, but that thick, whatever you call it, it's a certain type of French bread that they use for their sandwich. I think it is, but they use that for their sandwiches, and it really does absorb lots of butter.
It has a whole lot of white material in there to suck up everything
else. It's made for that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and it makes a good hamburger bun, too, if the truth be told. So that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, you make it bun format.
Exactly. I've been talking today, and I have so many thoughts. I I have a whole bunch of thoughts, actually, about the perennials in this SIP garden. Ray has already written in and said, okay, you're going to publish this list. Yes, it will be in next week's newsletter. And indeed, I've been working on this. I do talk about these plants from time to time, but I want to make sure that this whole list gets in your head this morning so that as you are looking at, frankly, the perennials your neighbor is dividing, the perennials that are on sale at the garden center, or the things that you might want to start from seed for yourself, you have a couple of these in mind. I did finally dig up the red hot poker plants. Excuse me. And that really was a big deal because they turned out there's dozens and dozens of them in this tiny little space. So instead of trying to take individual plants out, I would have had to stick those into individual pots and grow them on. I divided them into 4 after my friend dug them up. And I ended up with a couple of them fell off, so I made 5 different clumps out of it. And they have taken off and are growing and are really going to be quite beautiful. Next year, I trust that they're going to bloom because they're in the sun. They used to bloom in the other spot in the garden, but then the tree got too tall and too thick and the shade came along and they ended up just making lots and lots of leaves. So when you have a plant that looks that way, you think, that used to bloom. What happened? Well, the reason is usually because something has shaded it. And if you undo the shade, you get more flowers. That's the case that I've managed to pull off with the red hot poker. My Lenten roses are just at the bottom of their world. Lenten roses and Louisiana iris both begin to grow at about this time, so you can see them just starting up. That's one of the other fun things that we get to appreciate in this time of the year is getting them to grow. Autumn Joy, the stonecrop, the sedum is just beautiful. Those white flowers are turning pink, and then they'll turn really dark, dark brown. It's a wonderful plant to have for the changing of the seasons. And, of course, don't forget your grasses. You got to add in the maiden grass, the tall miscanthus. But I really like the little dwarf fountain grass, the pennisetum. I know it makes seeds all over the place, but guess what? That just gives you more. You can dig them up and share them with friends or spread them around your garden. I'm very excited to be getting a little chance at some of Kathy's African blue basil. All of the blue colors are harder to get into the SIP garden. So I'm very much in favor of this one, but I'm also in favor of blue salvias. So when you got some space and you want to add to things, think about the pollinator plants and plant perennials. My goodness, they'll go on forever. Ah, yes, indeed. This is great. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all asking about subscribing. It is coming around to time to subscribe. We will be doing that November and December, getting ready for the new year starting in January, because y'all know I'm pretty bad at figuring out when you subscribed, so I start everybody in January. Oh, I guess I can do that. I'm allowed. It's my newsletter. Anyway, I think this has been a fun morning already. We got a little bit longer to go, and I appreciate that y'all hanging in with me here today on the Garden Mile. And if you don't think it's crazy enough, stick around. Rooms were made for carpets, towers made for spires. You do know what this says it is. It isn't. So, I knew it wasn't that because we don't have that anymore. But anyway, welcome to the technical difficulty. It's no technical difficulties here. Lance is having way too much fun. Thank you for being so cool.
That's Ghost of Stephen Foster by the Squirrel Nut Zippers. Come on, that's actually going to be my song for the music section today, and Buddy. So I didn't want to spoil it.
I knew when it said what it said, it wasn't that. And of course,
you know,
I'm telling you, I'm trying to figure out. I need for us to steal away and go to see the Squirrel Nut Zippers. I mean, but I won't be in the state, so it's going to be kind of hard to do.
Oh, man. I love it. I mean, Jimbo's the guy. I mean,
too much.
Yeah, there's just so much color there, you know.
Well,
so much creativity. And
I actually want to have dinner with them. I feel like there would be just a blast, conversation and carrying on.
There's no band like them.
No, there certainly is not.
I don't think there is. And this is the perfect month to really enjoy a little Squirrel Nut Zipper. So if you're not familiar with the band, do yourself a favor.
Really, honestly.
I mean, really, you've never heard anything like it. It's just out there. It's the best way to put it. It's just out there.
If you have fondness for it's somebody way back, far back, like Spike Jones. If you have fondness for klezmer music, if you have fondness for something you've never heard before, all of those things are in the Squirrel Nut Zipper.
And they all are immensely talented with other instruments too.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you got guys playing the trombone in
there's
here.
A whole
it's
thing.
Really cool.
It's so much fun.
And I know you being a Louisiana girl, you really have to appreciate the big band, the brass band, that kind of, because there's some feel to it you get when you're down there and you hear the jazz band, or you hear the marching band walking through the streets. It's so perfect for that place. I
come from a woman who drove across country to hear Jimmy Dorsey and all those people, all the big bands, literally. She grew up with all of the bands in the street and all of the parading, and so of course driving 6 hours to dance to big band music was just logical.
Well, it's saying that this is the season, right? You got football season, you got parade season. This is big band season
all
right
of
now.
That. It's just fun, and that's really what. The other thing that my friend the foodie said was that she still thinks New Orleans has the best food of anywhere, and I thought to her, well, you just need to come spend some time with me. I can take you places that are better, and it's true. The South, we have wonderful food in New Orleans. There's no question about that. But we have magnificent food across the South, and particularly, I'm not going to call y'all out because I don't want a free meal. But my point is that there are some magnificent chefs, and we're so lucky that we get a chance to go and eat what they cook.
Oh yeah, man! I lived in Oxford
way beyond what I could do.
years watching.
There were 4 different places in Oxford in this article that she sent me about.
Yeah, and
the foodie one and stuff.
Being a part of. I had nothing to do with it other than on the consumption side, but watching it go watching it go from great restaurants like Schmitty's and the home feel and the stuff that was there, to where it has gone in the 25 years. It's really remarkable, and it is a great food scene. And a lot of folks, as you said, they've migrated there to open a restaurant.
Because they realize that people there are conscious of better foods and want interest in it, and they're interested. So
you get high service.
Let's face it, nobody ever starts a restaurant that they don't want anybody to come to.
Yeah, it's not one of those things you're looking for the back 40 off 751 next to Willie Roy's Costume Emporium.
Well, and I'm going to tell you that Willie Roy probably needs to put in a restaurant if he wants to keep that going the rest of the year.
It's going to be speckled bass and alligator meat only. And the one thing, whenever you go look for squirrel nut zippers, you're going to come across bands you've never heard of and things that are interesting.
True.
And what I'm going to mention,
true.
and I haven't heard it, but this is how it sparks your brain. I'm going to let you go after this, but here's one: the Williams Park Benefit Barbecue Chicken Bog and Bluegrass.
Come on now.
I'm listening to that, and before I get into the,
we're ready to go to that. Come on,
you got it, man. You and I would love that.
We would have a blast. How long can a person stand on one leg? I need to ask you this question.
Guinness Book of World
Records. This is one of those things. There are records for this, and interestingly enough, they drop off precipitously after age 50. When we get to age 50, you got to test. They test people under 50, but now they're testing people over 50 because, frankly, walking, balance, grip strength, and knee strength tests are all the things they're trying to figure out how to make everybody stay upright. Okay, if they're already upright, how to stay upright a little bit longer. I think this is so funny. The drop off in the ability to do this, y'all. We better start practicing. The drop off in the ability to do this. I'm taking some physical therapy right now, and one of the things they wanted me to do was lift one foot while I was standing on the other one, and that's what brought me to this story. I was able to do it, but I found out it's not as easy as I thought it was because it's not something you do all the time. Nobody's a flamingo, we don't do that. But at the same time, if we practice a little bit, it's one of the things that contributes tremendously to balance and, frankly, to being able to continue to stand up, keeping ourselves there. Most falls among older adults come from a lack of balance. It's not because you tripped on something. It's not because you might have tripped, but you wouldn't fall. It's not because your shoe fell off. You might fall off your shoe, but you still wouldn't fall if your balance wasn't off. And so I think this is one of those things that are really, really, it's why your doctor, first thing you do if you're over 60, your doctor says, have you fallen this year? It's like, well, yeah, maybe, no, not, whatever the answer is. There are implications to that. And so the other one, I love that the standing up with eyes closed, with one eye open and then with the other eye open, depending on which leg you're standing on at that time. see it. See if you can do it. Give yourself a couple of moments to check it out. These are things that the tests were only 30 seconds each, but the standing on one leg, especially your non-dominant leg, showed the highest rate of decline with age. And that's probably true for me. My right leg is non-dominant. When I do stand on it, it is less than the other one. So that was one of the things I learned this week. I was going to say we're not Paula. Paula grooms dogs for 10 hours and stands on her feet. Hope she has good shoes. That's all I can tell you.
Custom orthotics. You almost have to.
Yeah. Well, because
your dog can be screaming.
I'm what happens if you don't. Yeah. Okay, I worked on those floors for too long.
The dogs would be screaming.
The dogs,
and that's your
dogs,
feet, not
right,
the dogs.
Your dogs. Oh my goodness! But it is true. We have to pay attention to these things and keep ourselves a little bit more upright because it's very important. I was happy to tell you all that Ken Hackman will be here. Not next week. I'll be here next week. Peaches will be here next week. And then the following week, Ken Hackman will be here. So it's going to be a rollicking, fun time as we roll into November around here. I don't want you to forget, though, it's something that I learned. I was not the fastest kid on my block, and there were a whole bunch of us. And I have seen this time and time again. There's always that one kid that doesn't get to the door quickly enough to catch up with the other kids. That's the one that I want you to reach over to and call up the sidewalk. Say, come here. The other ones can stand there. They're not going anywhere. They're waiting on the candy. Let the other kid catch up. You'd be glad you did that. And believe you me, the other kids aren't going to notice, but the kid that you call out and bring up to you to get their candy first because they didn't happen to be there first, they didn't they didn't run into your door and start, whatever they're doing, that's just the kid that isn't quite as quick. And it's okay. That kid deserves their candy too. So give yourself the opportunity to be nice, to be kind.
Yeah, give the one in front in line, give them like a Dentine or some Colgate.
That was not my suggestion, but I can understand that it has a place. I really do. Be nice to them, and you trick or treaters, y'all be nice too. This is your mama talking. You want to say thank you every time, and you want to be nice to those kids that can't get there quickly enough. See you next week.